good afternoon, bakers. I think this is day 10 of my creating a new starter series for you, and I think today we've had success. I think it floats. I'm going to take just a tiny bit. I tried this a little earlier, and it did. It's floating lovely. So it's actually been like an hour and a half since I initially tried it, so I would have not been surprised if it had sunk, but it is floating. As you can maybe see, it's not dissolving in the water, it's floating very well. So now we go to our next step, and that is, what do we do with our starter? And I think I'll just get a fresh measuring cup. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take, if you're not going to be ready to bake, if you don't have all your tools and equipment, then you just need to transfer this to a larger jar and give it a feeding. You need a larger jar because this is going to still grow. So we're going to add the water and flour. I don't think I was very well prepared. I thought I was. Anyway, we're going to add our water and our flour to feed it. Now, if you're ready to bake tomorrow, then all you're going to do is take out 25 grams of this and put it in a jar with the 100 grams of water and the 100 grams of flour, the 75 of bread, 25 of whole wheat. You'll mix it up, put the lid on it, and leave it on the counter. I would not do this until bedtime. It's summer and most everywhere it's warm right now. So I would do this right before I went to bed. This will be fine until bedtime tonight. That way when you wake up in the morning, hopefully it'll be at the top of the rise. If it should start sinking, I just found this out this week. If it starts to sink, add about 25 or 30 grams of flour and stir it in and let it rise again. And I have to admit, that's what I did with this morning. I tested it, it sank, it was very runny. So I added 30 grams of flour, and lo and behold, it rose and it floated and it's bubbly and it smells much better. It doesn't stink anymore. So if yours is runny and not rising, try adding 25 or 30 grams of bread flour, stir it up and see if it won't rise. But if you're going to bake with it tomorrow, you need to take 25 grams of it out and then feed this, give it a feeding, put it in a bigger jar and put it in the refrigerator and label it, or, you know, like this one says new starter. You can give it a name. There are all kinds of cute names that people, Betty Doe and Jane Doe, lots of funny names. People come up with the cutest names for their starters. Put it in the refrigerator with the lid on. I don't screw it down. I leave it like that. But you'll need a bigger jar because it's going to grow some more. So that's what you do. And then you just take out, whenever you want to bake with it, take it out about an hour ahead to let it come to room temperature, and take out however many grams your recipe calls for. Usually it's 25 or 50 grams, maybe 60 of starter, and then feed it and put it back in your fridge. I always put it in a clean jar when I do that because I mix it up in a measuring cup. It's much easier to mix and incorporate all of the old starter with the new feeding, because I did it in the measuring cup once and I didn't realize I didn't get the new starter, or the old starter from the bottom mixed up. And when I went to bake, I had a bunch of stuff on the top and it didn't work. I ended up with a very flat, dense loaf. So it's better to mix it somewhere else. Anyway, so I'm so excited. My starter's ready. And so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna put this in the measuring cup, all of it. I need the bigger cup. I'm gonna put it in the big measuring cup because I'm not gonna bake with it tomorrow, so I wanna save it all because it's nice and ripe. It just gets better with age. It'll get a little more sour as you go along. Right now it's new. But if you're going to bake a bread, then you need to save 25 grams of this out and put that in a separate jar. Okay, there we go. So not everybody does this. A lot of people get rid of all of it or they use all of it, but I've worked too hard to get this built to get rid of it. So I'm gonna save all of it. I am going to add about maybe 10 grams of water, not much. You don't need to add much of anything because it's ripe. 10 grams of water, and I'll add maybe 10 grams of whole wheat and 10 grams of bread flour. This is the least precise part of the entire thing. You can feed it whatever amount you feel comfortable feeding it, as long as it gives it something to feed on. You are not going to ruin it. This only will get better and better with age. But you want to put it in the refrigerator now to slow the feeding process. This is pretty runny, so I think I'm going to add a bit more bread flour. If it's runny, it's hungry. A nice thick starter is always better. It has something to feed on, and it feeds on that flour and the bacteria in the air. Oh, that looks much better. Now you may feel like you don't need this much starter and you'll never use it all, and that's up to you. You can do what you like, but I like to have plenty of starter in my refrigerator at all times. It's just that way whenever I have to make a number like 10 loaves of bread at once, or Christmas, or any kind of holiday, or kids visiting, family, then I know I'm gonna have enough starter. So it takes too long to make to not have plenty on hand. It's worth it. You can give some away to your friends if they're trying to bake. I have given a lot away over the course of the last year and a half. And so I'll just put it in the jar, put it in the fridge, and we're ready. Now, if you're going to bake with it, save 25 grams, put it in your other jar, your smaller jar, and feed it 100 grams of water, 25 grams of wheat flour, and 75 grams of bread flour. Mix it well and leave it out on the counter. Okay, the other thing you should do with your starter, aside from naming it, what a mess, is to put a rubber band around it so that you can see where you're starting. It's always nice to know where you're starting. These rubber bands, I think, come off my celery or my green onions or something from the grocery store. All right, and that's what we've got. That will grow in your fridge. It's got food, it's got fuel, it's gonna grow in the refrigerator, hence the larger jar. I found this strange sized jar at an estate sale and I really liked it, so I bought it. I haven't seen any of this particular weird size in the stores for canning, but I really loved this size. It was perfect size. So name it, put it in your fridge, and now you've got starter and you're all ready to go. I'm so excited. So this ends our starter series. We've made our starter. If you need, watch these again. Like I said, this morning I cheated just a little and hurried it up, and it worked. I didn't think it would. I was shocked. So if yours is thin and runny and it's been, days and days, we were on day 9, today was day 10, it still wasn't floating. So it looked hungry to me. So just adding maybe 25 or 30 grams more flour to give it something to feed on was all it took. That was it. And now we've got our starter. Just feed this about once a week. Change the jar, put it in a clean jar, and give it this. Like I said, this is the least precise part of the whole thing. I thought you had to feed it a certain amount of this and that, and you don't. You absolutely do not. You just have to give it something to eat. So I have a lot of starter, and so I usually give it about 75 grams of flour and about maybe 30 grams, 25 or 30 grams of water, because it's usually pretty runny by the time I feed it. So also your starter may get, if you have to go away on vacation or be away or you can't feed it, after a couple of weeks, you're gonna start getting a liquid on top that's called hooch. That's fine, it's the fermentation, it's the alcohol, and there's no problem. Just stir it up and feed it well. You know, maybe that time you might have to add 100 grams of flour and 10 grams of water or something. You can feed it less because it's runny and watery, or sometimes it'll be really thick because all the liquid rose to the surface. So you might have to add some water. You have to judge and do your research, check it out. You can look it up on YouTube or online, you can Google it. There are so many ways to find out what you're supposed to do at any step. But basically, this is the easiest part of it. Don't get yourself all worried, clutching your hands or anything about how much do I feed my starter. Just give it some food, give it some flour. Doesn't matter. Give it a little more is better than a little less. So, and then when you're ready you want to bake, let it come to room temperature. Take out 25, 30 grams, put it in a jar, add your flours and your water, and let it grow on the counter. If you do it, I've often done it during the summer at 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, and set it out on my balcony. And by 12:30 or 1, it has risen to the top of the jar and I'm able to make my dough. And that way I can do it all make the dough all in one day and bake the next day. Otherwise, if you do it at night, then you feed it at night before you go to bed, let it rise, and in the morning you can make your dough and be ready to be out of the house by 10 or 11. You have to wait for the long proof. But all of that is spelled out in my videos, which is on my Facebook group. So congratulations, we've got a starter. Yay. All right, thanks everybody. Happy baking.